All right, let's talk about corporate finance. We're going to strip it all the way down to its core today. We're going to look at the three huge fundamental questions that literally every business has to answer, whether it's a tiny corner shop or a massive global corporation. So let's just dive right in. And just so you know where we're coming from, our guide for this whole thing is a classic university textbook, Fundamentals of Corporate Finance. So yeah, we're getting right to the source, the stuff that every finance student learns from day one. These are the bedrock principles. I mean, really think about it. It seems like a simple question, right? But the answer is anything but. How does a company decide where to invest its cash? Or how to get more of it when it needs it? And how does it just manage the day-to-day flow? Well, that is exactly what we're going to break down. You see, when you really get down to it, the entire field of corporate finance is just a big framework for answering three critical questions. If you get these three things right, you've built a really solid foundation for the business. But if you get them wrong, well, even the most brilliant business idea can find itself in a world of financial trouble. And here they are, the big three. First, what long-term stuff should the company buy? Think new factories, new technology. That's called capital budgeting. Second, okay, how are we going to pay for all that? Do we borrow money or sell off a piece of the company? That's its capital structure. And finally, number three, how do we manage the cash coming in and out every single day to pay the bills? That's working capital management. Simple questions, right? But the answers, they have huge, profound consequences. So, who's actually making these massive decisions? Who's in the driver's seat? Let's take a quick look at the key people inside a company who are tasked with answering these questions. Right at the very top of that pyramid, you've got the Chief Financial Officer, the CFO. This is the senior exec who's responsible for, well, pretty much overseeing every financial move the company makes. And reporting up to the CFO are two really crucial roles. You've got the treasurer, who's all about the money itself, managing the cash, planning for those big purchases. And then you have the controller, who's focused on the numbers, the accounting, the taxes, making sure all the data is accurate. A simple way to think about it is one person manages the flow of the money and the other person records it. Now hang on. Before you can even start to think about those three big questions, there's a huge decision you have to make first. What is the legal structure of the business? And believe me, this choice has absolutely massive financial implications down the line. We're going to zoom in on the three most common ways to set up a business. First is the sole proprietorship. That's basically just one person running the whole show. Then you've got the partnership, which is two or more owners. And finally, the big one, the corporation, which is its own separate legal entity. Okay, here is probably the single most critical difference: liability. For a proprietorship or partnership, there's literally no separation between you and the business. So if the business gets sued or goes into debt, your personal stuff, your house, your car, your savings, it's all at risk. But a corporation gives you what's called limited liability. It builds a legal wall between the business and you, protecting your personal assets. But of course, there's a trade-off. There's always a trade-off, right? A proprietorship's profits get taxed just one time as your personal income. A corporation, on the other hand, can get hit with double taxation. First, the company pays taxes on its profits, and then if it pays out some of those profits to its owners, the shareholders, as dividends, those shareholders have to pay taxes on that money again. Okay, so we've got the people, we've got the legal structure, but what are they all working towards? What's the end game? In a for-profit company, what is the ultimate goal of all these financial decisions? Well, the textbook answer is incredibly clear and direct. The goal is to maximize the value of the company for its owners. And in a corporation, the owners are the stockholders. So the mission is simple: make the stock worth as much as possible. This is the North Star that's supposed to guide every decision a financial manager makes. But this raises a huge ethical question, doesn't it? If your only goal is to maximize the wealth of the owners, does that mean you should do anything and everything to get there, legal or not, ethical or not? And that thought leads us straight into a fundamental conflict, a tension that exists right at the very heart of pretty much every big corporation: the potential clash between the people who own the company and the people who actually run it day to day. In the world of finance, this is called the agency problem. It's a textbook definition. The owners are the principals, and they hire managers to be their agents to run the company for them. But what happens when the agent's goals don't quite line up with the principals? Let me put it another way. A manager might be really interested in just making the company bigger and bigger, building a giant empire, right? because that boosts their own power and prestige. But maybe those big, risky projects don't actually make the company more valuable for the owners. So the manager gets a bigger office and a fancier title, while the owners are stuck with a company that's less profitable. That, in a nutshell, is the agency problem. So how do you fix this? Well, there are two main ways. First, you can try to align their interest with compensation. You give managers things like stock options, so if the stock price goes up, they make a lot more money too. The second tool is the threat of corporate control. Basically, if managers are doing a bad job and the company's value drops, another company could swoop in, buy it, and fire them all. That's a pretty powerful motivator. And all of this brings us to one last really big question. While the textbook goal might be to maximize value for the owners, what about everybody else? What does a company owe to its employees, its customers, its suppliers, the community it operates in? In this relentless quest for value, what does a company truly owe, and to whom?